is how do I build a probate real estate business as a real estate agent? How do I develop a business where I get more listings and sales using probate as my area of expertise? And what better way than ask somebody who's done it? And I actually kind of watched her start and become a superstar from Northern California, also from our probate master group, Miriam Cruz. Miriam, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here.
So give us a little background. How long have you been in real estate?
So I started cold calling for a family member maybe 5 years ago or 8 years ago, off and on. I tried to become a wholesaler. I tried to become one because I was never successful at it, maybe like 4 years ago. And then I became a licensed agent about a year and a half ago.
So a year and a half ago you started, and I think I met you through, or knew of you through Chad's program around that time. Is that when you started with the probate program?
Right.
So what was it that brought you to probate? You're relatively new in real estate. What was it that brought you to the probate space specifically?
So I had been cold calling for, like I said, a family member, and I was working for the courthouse here in Santa Clara. So I really enjoyed the legal side of probate. And when I called people, I knew how to look at their account, and I actually knew what I was reading. And I'm like, oh, this judge, my judge is now working in civil court and deals with probate here in Santa Clara, the judge that I was working for. So it was really cool how it all came together.
So what was your position in the courthouse?
I was a clerk to Honorable Judge Eric Giffon, and then I was a supervisor for traffic and then criminal court.
So not probate, but you knew the basic procedures of the courthouse and the files and the online resources and things like that.
Right. And my best friend works at probate.
There you go. I knew that was coming.
So the judge that I work with, again, now works at probate. My other best friend works in his courtroom. So I knew the legal side, and now I got to learn probate. Probate's like a lot more simpler than a criminal case. So I think when I look, I mean, yes. When I'm looking at the file. So at least for me, when I would look at the file, I'm like, oh, okay. It's not as, we were in the motions unit, death penalty cases. So I was handling some pretty serious matters.
Oof.
Yeah.
Nasty people. If you think probate families are difficult, I imagine somebody up for murder charges must be tough to work with.
There's levels to this.
Sure. So what fascinates me about your story is that one of the...
I am extremely versed in CPR. I do know how to administer CPR. However, I will not administer unless you're a hot female. This is the reality.
This is a Zoom bomb, and I thank you for getting on there so quickly, and I did not jump on him quick enough, and we'll just do this later. Okay, we got this. That's the second time I've let my guard down on the security settings, but we've now got that you can't unmute anybody. So anybody on the call, you can't unmute yourself. You need to ask in the chat box. If I recognize you, great. If your name is something other than your full name and then you're registered, I would ask you to just put your contact info so I know it's you, and we get to the point where it's participative. So let me go back. What I find fascinating about your story is, the top probate realtor, I think, in Los Angeles was a paralegal for a firm. And as a result, I think not only learned the process like you did, but had some unique insight into the relationships that she's used. To her credit, you still have to be good to develop those relationships, but most people don't have that opportunity. But I hear your story fairly often, which is not that you necessarily had the opportunity for the referrals, but you had the opening for the expertise.
Right.
So how did you convert your knowledge of the probate process into getting business?
So first of all, I think it's an added bonus, right? When I deal with people, the way that I run my business is coming from a place of caring. So whenever I come and I speak with a potential client, it's never about, well, how can I sell their home? It's how can I help them? And sometimes it's probably not even probate. Sometimes it's something else. Maybe they have a question and I refer them to an attorney. So I do a lot of referrals for trust or estate planning. It's always coming up with a solution. And I think that's how I began to build my business. It was always about helping someone else or leading someone to a solution. So that's how I started. So, however, having knowledge in the paperwork has helped me, I mean, beyond, you know, when I look at a paper, I'm like, okay, now it's a different personal representative. So I'm not calling that person that I shouldn't be calling. Maybe there's conflict. When the case is continued, I'm able to kind of know why.
Right.
So when I talk to a potential lead, they're like, how do you know all of this?
Right.
And
Exactly.
I'm aware. Yeah.
You'd be a little careful because you can know a lot more. You know so much it almost feels creepy to them.
Right.
It's all public.
Right.
It's just I know how to get to it. You know how to get to it. So to them it feels creepy, but the reality is, welcome to probate. It's all public.
Yes. And actually, I've never had a situation where it's been creepy. I've always had, thankfully, and I hopefully moving forward, where people feel like, okay, I could trust you because you know what I'm going through. And
Yeah.
actually, I could trust you because I don't want anyone else knowing that there's hella drama in my family. So I'm not going to get my friend who's a realtor. I'm actually going to hire you because I don't want people knowing what's going on here.
Is that a legal term? Helodrama? Is that?
Oh yeah, sorry. And it's,
So,
sorry.
but I'm sure also you're discreet, right? I mean, you have to be careful what you tell people you know, and be discreet with it. I'm sure you are. It's not because you do know
absolutely.
you know information that would make people uncomfortable if they knew you knew it right away, right? You have to be a little careful with that.
Absolutely. And that's where when I cold call, that's my main, actually now it's becoming more referrals. But when I started, it was mainly cold calling. And my conversation with the potential client is never about the house, the probate. It's more about how are you doing? And this is who I am. Because normally when you call someone, they're already freaked out. How did you get my information? And what do you mean you go look at cases? What are you doing? Why? So it's mainly about getting to know each other on a personal level. And then I touch upon that. And I won't go too far into the case if I know they don't want to talk about it. It just depends.
You're so calming to talk to. I mean, I'm almost feeling relieved myself of whatever personal problems I have and anxieties. So,
I hope so.
So you were a cold caller before you got into probate. You said you called for your family, right?
Yeah.
So when you started in probate a year and a half ago, how long did you have to cold call before you started seeing a couple deals and had maybe deal flow? How long did that process take?
It took maybe, based off when I used to cold call, I didn't get any probate, maybe like 6 months.
So you started cold calling probates and it took 6 months to see a probate deal.
Right.
From the cold calling.
Yeah.
So just stop for a second, those listening and those maybe on the replay, 6 months. Now, today you have a great business. Was it worth 6 months to invest?
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, but I used to cold call before.
Right.
And
you had the skill, you had the muscle, the hustle muscle, right?
Yeah.
You just turned that into probate and it took about 6 months for that specifically to convert.
Absolutely. And it's, oops, sorry, the lights go off here. Let me stand real quick. Sorry. There we go.
Be late.
So yes, that's how long it took. And it's completely worth it. I mean, I love what I do.
Now, after 5 months cold calling, how'd you feel about it?
You know, to me, it was more of a challenge because I really enjoyed probate and I wanted to help someone.
Now, hold on one second. Just if you pause, those watching, do you see in her eyes the determination when I asked that question? Like, I asked the question at 5 months and many people, too many people at 5 months are feeling despair and quitting. And you saw like her whole posture changed and she was like, boss lady, no, I was determined. I felt it, right?
Yeah.
So at 5 months you were determined. What was that kept you think on track?
I wanted it badly. I wanted to leave my job. I wanted to make money and I knew that it's possible. And the only one that can make that happen was me. You know, many people are looking for a fix, a quick solution. I'll buy 1,000 leads. I'll do this. And for me, it was really to be determined, to be consistent. And I knew it was going to be there. And you have to believe in yourself.
Right.
I knew it was coming. So I think based off of that, and when I saw the first one, I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay. So I think I have something here. Like you have to believe in yourself. I think that was my main thing.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So first, for everybody listening, it's meant to be participative. If you have a question, raise your hand in the Zoom chat, Zoom application, or put it in the chat box. I'll call on you, try to ask you to unmute. Just because we get Zoom bombed, I'm not able to keep people unmuted and let you jump in on your own, but that's part of life, I guess. And then if you're on the live stream, YouTube, Twitch, I see somebody coming in from YouTube, Marvell, how you doing? And also Danae Marie Sellers, I talked to you in San Diego. Thanks for joining us in today. If you're on the YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, feel free to put your questions there and I'll be monitoring that. And if you're watching on the recording afterwards, I'll either answer it or circle to Miriam if appropriate. So, okay, so you started.
And I'm sorry if I have to stand again because the lights go off. My bad. Okay,
That's
I have
okay.
to do it. Otherwise, I'll be talking here in the dark.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. For as much as I'm paying you, you can stand as many times as you have to. I promise. And it's nice of you to offer to help today, because really, I'm like you. I'm just a broker doing this business, make good living. Started with nothing 4 years ago in probate, built a great business, and I wouldn't be here if not for the community people who supported me. And I watched you kind of be helped along the process when you started. So I really appreciate your willingness to give back. You must get, because I know you've been on different calls. I've seen you in the chat box. You must get agents to call you. I think you said you just hung up with one recently. You must get agents all the time to call you and ask you how you did it and for guidance, correct?
Right.
So do you get what I get, which is, yeah, but what's the easy way? I mean, really, it sounds like a lot of work. Do you get that question back? Yeah, but I'm really looking for a way. One time I got one, I'm looking more for a machine gun kind of approach where I can kind of spray it and then just get the listings. How do you do that? Do you get that question?
So I had an open house in Berkeley. It was a triplex, and one of the buyer's agents came and said, I saw your website. I want to do what you're doing. Please give me the 5 steps to do exactly what you're doing. And I started laughing. I'm like, I don't even know. And I said, okay, well, I start cold calling. He's like, no, I don't cold call. Like, let's jump. And I said,
I don't want to do what you did. I just want your results.
I just want to have what you have. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. There's no like quick fix. You can't just start and all of a sudden get all these listings, referrals. I don't think that's possible. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
I've interviewed, tons of real estate agents like you, and nobody's done it that I've come across. Only the seminar speakers will tell you that, but they'll never let you ask them questions about what they did. And when you what I've found in my career is when you break down that business, it's never as simple as they explain it to you. They're part of a big team. They're just the front man doing the coaching, and there's 50 people behind them, and they add all the numbers up. There's always some other kind of weird thing going on behind it. But I really admire that about you, that you really plugged along and went through that. So talk about when you started cold calling, or I guess to this day, now it's mostly referral. But as you cold called business, where'd you get your data from? Do you mind sharing what provider it was, and what was the script, or what was the come from when you called people when you started?
So actually, when I first started, I think I got them from all the leads, right? Chad used to be there, and then I got him from LAProbate. And I only have them from LAProbate. I've tried other lead systems, and it just doesn't work for me. And I go to the courthouse and I pull my own data. Every week I'm there every Friday. So
wow,
that's how I pull my data from Santa Clara County. It also allows me to really look at the file and understand what's going on. I feel most comfortable. My friends are there. I love to hang out at the courthouse. I had actually, funny story, there was an agent that I met there that I work with at the YMCA back in the day. And he said, hey, you're doing great. I want to practice cold calling with you. So I said, wonderful. I always want to work with people. It turned out he's a friend of my client at that time. And he called my client and said, you should fire Miriam because I'm going to do this job cheaper for you. And I need to feed my kids. So my client quickly called me and said, hey, you saw him and he told me to fire you. I'm like, no good. So I said, I didn't want to call his broker and like create this drama because my client didn't go with him anyway. But I have been waiting to see him at the courthouse, and I told the staff, be ready because I'm going to go off on him. So the staff, every time I come in on Fridays, they're like, hey, he hasn't been here. And last week, one of the court staff said, I warned him, you're going to tell him off, and we're ready for that because he's a cheater.
Woo.
So I said, So everyone's ready to see the drama. And I know the deputies, so when I go in there on Friday, it's really a fun experience. I get to chat with people and, connect with people that I used to work with.
So let me ask you then, do you get, I mean, it's always hard to say where a deal comes from, but have you gotten referrals just from people you've met while you're there drawing the data? Like if you had other family members or attorneys or realtors refer you a deal or employees in the courthouse refer you a deal, just because you're there doing what you're going to do anyhow?
Employees, yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
And so I think the what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story there is we're in the talk to people business. If you talk to people, you get business. It's almost like you're going to the court as an excuse to get the business, right? It's not even really that you have to be there necessarily to some
And
degree.
that's actually what happened with this situation. I told the staff, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I focus on this. Please tell Trini I'm going to kick his ass when I see him. Excuse my language. So now they know, okay, she does real estate.
Yeah.
She's a badass and she's about her business.
Yeah.
And not so good for Trini because I'm sharing his, baggage out here, but I don't care because I think he deserves that. But it's a way for me to use as an excuse and build relationship and have them know what I do. So any situation, whoever it is, I don't come up and say, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I do this. It's like, how are you? And then the conversation will go there.
Right.
So they know and they're informed.
If it's natural to go there, it will go there.
Right.
If it's not natural to go there, it's just slimy. I'm a realtor. Do you have any referrals? Right. It just feels slimy because you're not really that intimate with a person to get that kind of a relationship with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, so you use the data source. I'm not familiar with the one that you mentioned. You said it's DF data?
DF Probate. Okay. It's like Gary DeGrassi or
Oh, Gary DeGrassi. Yeah, he's with my company, with the XP Realty. There's a son, the father passed. I don't know if you know that.
Right. Yeah.
And the son. Okay, so they had the data, but I think they packaged somebody else's data. But nice. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you use their data. And then so today now it's mostly referral, both at your court on Friday. Do you look at Friday time as lead generation time or administrative time, or how do you kind of classify?
I do. Yeah. That's my day to go to the courthouse, download data from wherever, go visit attorneys, relationship day. That's what I use it for.
Any food involved? You're bringing snacks or cookies or something for the office staff?
I actually bring
how do I know this? I knew this. Go ahead.
I bring the attorneys a goodie bag that says just popping by with a whole bunch of popcorn, like spicy popcorn, different flavored. And I put my information inside. To be honest, that hasn't really been that successful because many times they're being blocked, right, by their paralegals and whoever else. Sometimes I catch them, or I do that with attorneys that I've worked with in the past. I'll just stop by and drop the goodies. And it doesn't have to be where I have to meet with them because I know they're busy. I just want them to know who I am.
I think the real power play is bring it for the paralegal, because everybody's going to the attorney and treats them poorly. But the person who's filling out the form and the person who has a question, oh my gosh, what is the APN? Oh, we need a copy of the deed. Oh, when was the property, bought, sold, whatever? Just give Miriam Cruz, she could probably look it up for us. I found that really the real power is the paralegals. And I would say, really, this is for you, not for the attorney, or make sure, that kind of thing, make them feel important. That's just been my play. So, okay. So, what do you think you do different? You mentioned, I think, if I was to summarize your value proposition, one is a relationship with the person who has a problem. It sounds like you're a caring, thoughtful person rather than just a realtor. Give me your listing. Is that, would you say that's the primary focus of you're obviously knowledgeable. How do you present yourself, your knowledge in relation to your competition? How do you share that you're distinctly different? Because every realtor says they're a probate expert, right? They all have a certificate. They all have their email address. They're probate experts. Obviously, you're a different level given your background as well as the work you've done. Do you bother to make the distinction? Do you expect the customers, they figure it out, or how do you present that?
No, I think that it's very important for us to tell them, right, and not wait, like, have them guess. And I want to be different than everyone else. So my mission is, whenever I go to a listing appointment, to get the job. But by being myself, providing the information that I have to provide, and also knowing about their case and their house and their family situation. Again, I don't just go in and, oh, I heard there's drama, but clearly if you saw, a continuance and other things in the case, I know things are happening.
Right.
So the reason why I use that is so I just have knowledge and I'm able to understand what this person is going through. If there's multiple siblings and there's, a trial recently, I'm like, trial and probate. I know that she's going through a lot already. So coming from a place, honestly, of like you said, caring and love is where I go in. It's like, okay, I know this person is going through a lot. How can I assist them in providing resources and solutions? Also, as we all probably do, I have my handyman, my contractors. I have people that I specifically have chosen because they're good people like me. So everyone that works in my circle is honest. We don't take advantage of anyone. It's not always about just making money. We make it work for each other and we work as a team. And I actually had a interview like 3 weeks ago, and my client said, I'm going to interview 4 of you. And I said, please do, so you can know that I'm the best one. And she's like, oh my goodness. So after she called me and she said, you were right, you were the best one. So it's not about being cocky or I'm better than people. It's really, you will have the best results because I will do my best for you. Wow. In every way possible. I will help the paralegal. I will help the attorney, the title company. I will help the buyer's agent, to make sure that everything's smooth. So I'm not just here for one side. I'm here to work as a team. That's how I deal with my transactions.
One of the things you said is that you see, when you first meet the customers, sometimes you'll see the case is already under process. There's already conflict. There's maybe a trial. So you're not necessarily focused on getting the new filings right away. I know there are agents who buy the data and they think I have to be the first one to call. I feel like that's only if you're not as good as I am or you are. If you're as good as you are, you want the person who has some problems. They've been maybe with a realtor for a while, but the realtor can't help them. And all of a sudden I could read the case file. You're reading the case file and saying, well, here's a problem. My guess is also that when you read the case file, you recognize some of the attorneys.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I give an answer all the time to. I'd love to get your perspective. How would you describe the competency of the probate attorneys as a population as a whole? Like what percentage you would say are competent? What percentage you say is not competent? How would you describe that? You are on the internet.
Right. I'm like, why are you doing this?
I'll tell you why, because I work 2 things. I'll tell you why beyond it. 100% honest, because you and I are colleagues, and I appreciate being here. And for all the money I'm paying you, I have the right. I don't have the right not to. One I would say is I aspire to work with the top 10% who are really, really good,
right?
And they're distinctly different. And I'd say the bottom 90% of that group, some know that they don't know what they're doing, and they need me to help them. And the other 90% don't know they need me to help them, and they're just a nightmare to work with, and I'd rather not work with them anyhow. So to be honest, I don't mind saying that just like in our business, I think the top 10% are really good. The bottom 9% are terrible. And if you know you're terrible and you need help, I'm here to help you. If you don't know it, whatever, they're not watching things to improve. Now,
I completely agree. I'm in a
that won't get you in trouble.
Yeah.
You might want to stop there.
I'm in a place in my business that I want to work with. Before, when I started, I was desperate. Mm-hmm. I'll take anything. Now I want to work with attorneys that I know are successful in the business because I see their name very often. I look at their website, I see what they're doing, and I'm able to, now people reach out to me for estate planning. Clearly, I'm not an attorney, so I'm able to refer. Nice. I just referred an attorney from San Francisco that I've been wanting to work with for years because he's so big, a case in which he's making over $100K.
Wow.
And he was like, wow. And I said, I want to provide to you. And I think that you are knowledgeable. Clearly, you have so many cases. I see what you're doing. I want to work with you. And credibility, right? And he's like, that's amazing. Like, thank you for referring to me. So it's not always about me, and me getting the business. It's about referring also clients to people that know what they're doing. I've had attorneys that come to me on the low and says, or will ask me, what's a notice of proposed action? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't say anything, but I'm thinking, geez, out of state attorneys that are practicing in California, I've seen that too. And things that I'm like, wow, actually one of my clients, he had a stroke. He had a home in San Francisco. The attorney filed the case in San Francisco. And I'm like, didn't your wife die in Santa Clara? And he says, yeah. So he called the attorney. He said, you've had my case for 2 years. Did you file in the wrong county? And the attorney's like, oh, my bad. So Mike ended up letting him go and hired someone locally. And not only that, Bill, a real estate agent had his house key and was waiting for probate to end, never had a listing agreement, and came, and I'm like, how do you give someone your house key? So I feel like the real estate agent and the attorney were not being efficient in dealing with a person who had a stroke. He couldn't even walk. So I called the agent and I said, hey, I need the key back. And he's like, who are you? That's my client. I'm like, you never signed a listing with him. I'm surprised that you took his house key, and asked him for the code for his safe. All these random things that are happening to the population. This is why I became a senior specialist, so I can know more how to talk to people that are older. But people are doing things, not only attorneys, agents, that are really not appropriate.
Yeah.
And this is why people don't trust us sometimes. So I think in that situation, the attorney didn't know what he was doing. The agent clearly didn't know, and the agent was waiting for this probate to end. And he never took the time to even check in to see where Mike was at in the probate process. So once I took over, we got it going. Within 6 months, I sold the property in San Francisco.
The A team took over.
Right.
That's what I tell people. It's time to work with the A team. You work with the B team. That's what it looks like. Right. And to be honest, Miriam, I don't think that's that uncommon. I don't know, maybe you don't see it, or maybe things are better in Santa Clara than LA, but the filing in the wrong county, wrong forms, wrong process, not clearing notes, just fundamental, not giving notices to other parties, just fundamental mistakes, basics. I see it all the time. And attorneys who come in fancy suits and work for good firms, and it's just shocking. And yet, then you see the guy who is the pro or gal or lady, and they know their stuff, and they know the judges. Everybody knows them. Things move. The judge gives them exceptions. Different story. And that's who you want to work with and who you want to grow up and be like.
Yes.
Let me knock out some questions here. So evangelist, single mom, Marvel Harbin, what to say to submit a request for my sister to be accountable to the co-heir like a quarter request. So Marvel, I would say reach out to me privately. That's going to be a very personal situation. I really don't want to go into detail online. If you want to text or email me, would be best. And maybe I can help find the right person. Make sure you include what state that's in. I don't want to assume it's in California because I'm in California, but that's a bit of a private situation. We don't want to get on the internet, I think. A couple of you guys put in your names and contact info. Love to have you network on here. I'm always looking to network out of state. I'm building a national platform. I closed a deal this week in Maryland and last month in Michigan. So definitely make sure if you're out of state, especially, put your information in the chat box so I can stay up on top of you. Claudia asked a question. Okay, let's go back a little bit further. So, I guess you and I were talking so much, I wasn't paying attention. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So at this point, I think you answered this question. Most of your business is coming from referrals because you're dealing with people who are around quite often, right? Do you still do any kind of cold calling or direct marketing, or is it all pretty much now inbound business for you?
No, I cold call. I love it.
How often do you do it?
Every other day.
For how long?
As much as I can. Some days could be 2 hours. Some days could be 15 minutes. And I have that one that I got. I only had 15 minutes. I think it was Mike, and I got it. That was the first call that I made that day.
Beautiful.
So I think anytime that I can call, I will call, because that's how I run my business. I truly believe in cold calling. I believe that it's helped me so much.
Wow.
And, you know, in probate, it's not like you get the listing and you could just sell it. There's a lot of moving parts to prepare the home, or you start the conversation with someone. And I've had some that I started a year ago and I'm barely selling it now. So you have to just go for it and continue doing whatever it is that you're doing.
You're so right. When I have one, I have two. I just took right in a row that are both. We're supplementing to try to get full authority on both of them now, and there's a little hiccup by the attorney on both of them. But you know, it's months from I first talked to them and got things signed, and we're not. And it's on the MLS. I just tell the agents, sit tight. We're not accepting offers yet because we want to be full authority. We don't want to have court confirmation. Okay, Christopher asks. So we answered that question. What geographic area do you handle? So I know you said Santa Clara, but you also do San Francisco, or you refer out to San Francisco? What's the geography?
I do San Joaquin, San Francisco, Alameda, Contra Costa, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara. So I do 6 counties.
That we call from down here, we call it the Bay Area, generally speaking. So.
Right. Except for the southern or Central Valley, which is Stockton, but I also run that area.
Yeah, Stockton's like for cowboys, so that's not for you. It's too dirty down there. No, I like Stockton actually. I just notice how San Francisco people look at Stockton people. So Pat asks, how do you put people at ease? So can you kind of role play a little bit with me as though I was one of your cold calls, not a referral call, but a cold call?
Sure. So I'll just say initially when I call, I say, hi, my name is Miriam. May I speak to Bill?
Hi, it's Bill.
Hey, Bill, this is Miriam. I'm calling you because I normally call families once a week that are going through probate. How are you doing?
A little busy with everything, but we're okay.
Oh, good. So again, my name is Miriam. I used to work for the courthouse and I specifically help families with their probate real estate. Do you have a little bit of a time? Do you have some time right now to talk?
Sure.
And then I don't want to go and bore people, but basically what I do is I tell them about me. I tell them about my services. I see that you went to court back in January.
Yeah.
How did that go? And that's how we start the conversation.
It's never good. The answer there is never good. Nobody ever says, it was great. We had fun. There was balloons.
I had some that say, yay, we finally got the letters. My gosh, thank you for asking. We're so happy. I'm like, yay, I'm glad. So it really depends on the person's tone.
Okay.
I've had some, actually last week or 2 weeks ago, someone said, oh yeah, my brother's living at the house with my wife's girlfriend. And I said, oh, that's fun. So your wife has a girlfriend. That's interesting. And we started cracking up. He's like, oh my gosh, no, she doesn't have a girlfriend. This is crazy. She's my wife. So I said, that's probably a lot of men's fantasy that you just told me about. So we're cracking up.
Well,
and that kind of built a trust and, a connection there. And we're just talking, being silly. So it really has to do, a lot of clients also, one of them has said, oh, please call me sir. I'm like, sure. Like whatever floats your boat. I don't care. It just really depends on the conversation. And allowing people to feel good and to ask questions. Something that I do with my calls, I don't rush it. I've role played with other people and it's like, oh, my name's, and I used to be like that. My name's Miriam, blah, 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 blah. Okay, thank you. Click. Now how are you? How are things going?
Right.
Okay, it's not a good time. Can I call you on Tuesday at 2? No, I work till 5. Okay, so where do you work at? Oh, good. Okay, so how about I call you at 7? Like, it just really depends on the conversation and really listening and allowing people to talk. That's how I feel that's the best approach for me, at least.
Well, that's very nice.
Yeah.
So one thing Claudia asked a question, but I want to say to anybody who's ever been to court, every court is so different that I encourage people to go to the court that's your primary. Now, in her case, she works in 6 counties, but my guess is you go to one courthouse. You don't go to all 6, do you?
No, the only one that I go to is my county, Santa Clara.
It's like me. I go to LA County. I do business in the others. When I've gone to the other counties, it's like a whole different world. You go to Orange County, everything is like clean. Everybody's nice. There's no lines. It's like a whole different world. LA, you're in the ghetto. It is It's safe because they have security. Otherwise, it's a whole different experience. But what I want to say is Claudia, you asked the question, and I'll ask her. But the real answer is you need to go to your county and see what's there. And if you are the expert of what's there, you win. You don't need. It doesn't look like LA. It doesn't look like Santa Clara. It looks like whatever county you're doing your business in. So, can you share a little bit? Obviously, when you're there to meet people. I felt like sometimes when I went to the court, I'm almost purposely not doing anything just to get attention, but I don't want to look like I'm getting attention. But as far as looking for data and looking for cases, can you share what you're looking for specifically?
Sure. So I look for, of course, the case file name, right? Who the person was. The case number, just in case I need to go online and look at something, or, I need to know and talk to the family about that. I look for the name of the personal representative. And many times it's also on the duties and liabilities, the phone number. Now, if the address looks a little bit iffy, I know that the attorney, because a lot of attorneys do that, they put their address and their phone number, so you can't reach out to their client. So many times I Google the address, I get the address from the house where the person lived, and I get the address from the personal representative. Sometimes I look to see how many errors, or if something looks a little bit odd, I'll notate that on my notes. But for the most part, as long as I have the address, phone number, and the person who passed away, and of course the personal representative's name as well. And I also get the attorney's name, just so I know which attorney that is.
Now, don't you have that data when you're buying it from LAProbate already, and you're supplementing it on the cases you're interested in? Or
Santa Clara is not provided by them.
There you go. So you buy the data in the other counties, but Santa Clara you have to get personally, which the good news is you have to go personally, because that means 9% of realtors aren't going to bother with it or do it twice in a row.
Right.
Wow. Okay, good for you.
And it's really consistency what has helped me in this field. Like, you have to stick with one thing. I know agents reach out, I've tried this, I cold call, I do. It's like, just stick with one thing, focus on that, and try it out. And that's what cold calling for me has been the best thing. I also do mailers, and I have received clients off of that. But you have to get really good at one thing so you can expand and focus on the rest. That's how I view it. Yeah,
I would agree with you. In fact, I would say two things. One is, you learn by doing it. When people ask me a lot of questions about, well, how do you say this? I say that, I would say, well, you're not making phone calls yet, are you? No, because when you make phone calls, some of that you start to figure out as you're calling people. And second, all marketing typically ends up with you talking to somebody. If you can't talk to them on the phone and convert them, then your mailers aren't going to work, because the mailers are causing them to call you. If you don't know how to talk to them on the phone, you're not going to convert it into any business. So
there we go.
Claudia asked, this is a classic question too. I was thinking going to mortuary homes and developing a relationship with them. Is that a good idea? I almost feel like and I don't mean to make fun of you, Claudia. I know where you're headed. Your heart's in the right spot, but I almost feel like I'm waiting for the realtor who says to me, I was thinking of putting my flyers in ambulances. That way, when the person died, the family member would see my flyer right there and call me first, like as if that's the goal, that to be closest to the person who died is the strategy. I don't get that in talking to you at all. In fact, to me, it sounds like you're just as good if they've been around for a while in probate for 6 months or a year as if they're brand new, right?
Yeah, that's not my approach. I would not do that. I actually feel for some that might even hurt you at points, if you approach a family when they're in that space.
Right.
I've had one client who said that the agent showed up at the funeral and just gave him the card, and they were so disgusted by agents, period. But everyone's different. I don't know. That's not my approach. To me, it doesn't, when they file for probate, that's when I go in, whether it's in the beginning or the end, or they've been stuck for years. It doesn't really matter to me, because my goal is to help them whatever stage. I've had some that come to me after probate. So it just really depends on the person that I'm helping, the conversation, but I don't target them specifically just because they just filed. Many times they're super confused and they're not going to make a decision anyway.
Right.
And some, they don't have the right to make a decision anyway, right? They don't have the letters yet. So they don't even know if they're going to be appointed. I've had one that thought was going to be appointed, and then it changed to another family member because there was major drama.
Right.
So really, I don't know. It really just depends on the situation.
Yeah, I could agree more. It's not about how soon you are. It's about you being effective when you talk to people and work itself out. I also would say this, Claudia. I was in college. One of my team members in college, his family owned mortuaries. They're very wealthy and they own like 7, mortuary facilities. I suppose if I had been in probate real estate right away, maybe he would have called me with a referral, possibly, right? And if your best friend, we weren't friends really, but if he was my best friend, I imagine I would socialize with him. Maybe he goes to mortuary association conventions and meets people. And if that's your best friend, you enjoy that and you're working with them, maybe. But to think that you're going to call somebody because you're closer to who died sooner, I just don't think that's a basis for building a business. So just be careful of that. Okay. Again, feel free to put your contact information in the chat box. We want to network and all that. Christopher asks, do you take on underwater or short sale properties in probate?
Yes.
Do you want to describe what that process looks like or what your strategy is there?
So it really depends on the situation. If it's a short sale property, let me clarify. So I've never done a short sale in probate. I have done foreclosures and I have a really amazing story that was so fascinating, but it really depends on the situation. And it's pretty much, that's what people come to me all the time. But what if it's foreclosure and it's probate? It's the same thing. We just have to rush and make sure that we get into action immediately.
Right.
So I had one here in Santa Clara. The family called me. They said, we haven't paid for 5 years. My dad passed away 5 years ago. The auction date is in 2 weeks. And I said, okay, let's sign the listing agreement. I'm sorry, we didn't sign the listing agreement yet. I said, let's get into action. Let's hold off the auction date and then we'll sign the listing agreement. Well, probate, the probate department, as you know, the court is super delayed. I called my friend Eric, who works there, and I said, hey, there's this family who's going to lose their home in 2 weeks, blah, blah. And he said, ask the attorney. They didn't have an attorney. I referred an attorney to them. She filed the motion. They were able to move the case so quickly that we stopped the auction, literally the Friday before Monday. So the family called me in tears. They're like, oh my goodness, thank you. And I'm like, you need to pay your stuff and fix your probate situation. So I was able to help them in that way. I don't think they're going to sell, but if they do, they're going to select me because I helped them through that process. And that's ideally what I want to do. But I think foreclosures or short sales, I think it should be the same. I've never done a short sale through probate, but it's pretty much the same. The only difference is there's a legal side and there's deadlines. Right. And of course you need to know that, and you can't jump the gun and do things. For example, if the notice of proposed action hasn't been sent out, I've heard about cases where people try to sell the house before that. I'm like, no, you have to know the legal stuff as well. Because then the family and the personal representative can really get into hot water. Right. When that happens. So to me, it's pretty much the same. You just really have to understand the goal. Right. And the timeframes. And if you can't wait until the notice, the due date, you need to talk to the attorney and get them to expedite that somehow, do an ex parte motion or do whatever they need to do to ensure that everyone is protected. Right. Yeah.
Do you work, if there's equity, do you work with estates that have reverse mortgages? I think the answer was yes, based on what you said before.
Right. One of mine that were actually just put on the market like 3 days ago, she has a reverse mortgage. I deal with that very often.
How much of your cold calling is the attorneys versus the families?
Attorneys, I would say 5%. I mainly call families. And I have a lot of now friends that are attorneys. And actually one of them said, she receives a lot of calls and she said, honestly, it's uncomfortable. I shouldn't even be talking to you, anyone about the case. And it just seems like very cutthroat. So I do that when I know maybe the attorney or I've worked with them in the past, but I rarely call them initially to talk about someone else. I don't do that anymore.
Steve Kaufman's on our YouTube says he has has done short sales well in probate. So interesting, Steve. You and Chris should get together. Steve Kaufman on the YouTube. And if Chris, if you're watching, you might want to get on the YouTube and put a comment there or reach out to him. Okay, good. We've got some more networking going on there. Glad to see that. We've got a few minutes left. If anybody else has a question, raise your hand in the app or put it in the chat box. I think I pretty much got up to date. My question. So let's talk about referring to attorneys. This is another area that realtors complain to me regularly. They'll say, I've referred cases and I don't get anything back. Do you hear that from other realtors? And what do you say to them?
I think you have to be very clear with the attorney and have a conversation. Normally when I refer, I let them know I would love to have a relationship with you. And I would love to add value to you as you to me. And it's pretty much, you can't hold them accountable for not referring to you, right? So picking the ones that you feel might do that, I think that's also based off their field, and that they're doing this so often. There's some attorneys that refer to the same agents all the time. I already know that, and I know who they are. But I do have like the one in San Francisco that's really big, and he said, I have my selected agents, and I said, I'm referring this big case to you, and I want to be one of your selected agents moving forward. Can you do that for me? And he said, yeah. And within 2 weeks, he referred someone to me.
Nice.
So I'm referring to him, he's referring to me, and it's a relationship. And I think that's the best way, but not what someone called me actually from the group one day and asked me, because she was super pissed off that she wasn't getting referrals. I don't think you need to, for me, I don't hold on to that anger or anything. I just move on to the next. And don't believe that everyone's like that. And if that doesn't work for you, try something different. But I don't think that holding on to that idea, I don't think it's the best way to deal with that, because attorneys do refer. I think maybe not all of them, and some of them have their selected few, but our goal is to be their selected few. So it's continuously, trying to get there.
Yeah, I get a lot of agents who will tell me they refer leads to attorneys, but and I see, in chat, I'm sure like you do, I see in different chats, people say, oh, I need an attorney in this area. And it's like, well, what do you need the attorney to do? Right.
Oh.
There's a difference between an attorney who's a probate administrator or a probate litigator,
right,
or an estate planner, and they just, so when you start referring people, you need to make sure that you're giving people the business they want in the way that they want to get it.
So that's such a great point, Bill. So people actually will reach out to me and say, hey, do you have an attorney for probate? Well, what about? Is it estate planning? In what county? Is it going to be litigation? And I actually screen them before sending them to my attorneys, because I don't want them to get a headache.
Right.
Some people, maybe it's major drama and they feel like they're being cheated and they want to sue the family. It's like, is that even probate? Like, I don't know. So before sending people to my attorneys, I want to make sure that it's quality. I can't just send them drama and then they're going to be frustrated with me because I keep on sending them just people that are not going through probate, or it might be something else. So really understanding what you're referring. And for me, I want the same thing when they're referring a client to me. I don't want it to be just some random person who's, has drama. I want it to be something that will actually work for me. I think they feel the same. Our time is very valuable.
Good way to put it. I think sometimes we think of attorneys as handing out referrals like candy, but the reality is they just want their probate case funded, and the real estate is an asset to fund that case. And so when they're selecting you, they're selecting somebody, they're not going to get paid unless the house sells.
Right.
They're not going to have a happy client unless you do a good job. And so just like, the other day I had this title rep call me, can I just give him a title order? Like, well, no, I'm just going to hand my commission check in your hands because you think it's your turn. Like, this is business. I have clients who need me to perform, and I need to know that my team performs. And so we have to be that way if we want that kind of business. And I think treating referrals as, intimate exchanges of information rather than just, can you give me a piece of, it's not like Halloween, you're going door to door looking for trick or treat. It really is more intimate than that.
Absolutely. And something that you mentioned, the referrals and treating them. So whether it's the title company that I work with, the contractor, I'm pretty clear, or an attorney, I'm pretty clear straight up. This is how I run my business. being super respectful, really honoring each other's time, being ethical, professional. So all these things. And honestly, I could say all the people around me that I know of are in that same frequency. Like we're all on the same page. So the attorneys that I work with and refer to, they're all good people. My contractors, everyone. So just really knowing what you want for your business and knowing what kind of people you want around you. And they'll continuously refer to you, whether it's, I have friends that are, someone's going through probate and they'll reach out to me. I mean, I have many stories that I could share. Just random people are sharing my information, or people at work. I mean, it just, I am becoming like that probate expert. I am that. Someone said, oh, you're like the probate queen. That's what I give out, right? I want people to know that. I post it on social media. I'm not just a real estate agent. This is my specialty. So when you come to me, you will get results in this space. And I think we really need to own that.
Nice. And I hope those of you watching on this call just get how she owns that, right? That was not a script. It wasn't just a sales pitch. It's like, that's her essence as a person who she is. So thanks for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Well, look, I could talk all day about probate. One last question, an area that I'm interested in. I'm working more and more on probate advances. Are you involved in that at all? Do you work with a probate advance company? Do you refer them? Is it something you're familiar with at all? Where heirs get an advance on their inheritance?
So I have helped someone pay that off. One of my clients. I've never been interested in them because of the interest rates. When I did my research, maybe a year and a half ago, and my client wanted to fix their home before selling it. And I said, I will pay for that, which I often do out of pocket, and then get reimbursed at close of escrow. So I'm not too familiar with them. I don't work with them. I think if it's going to, the way that I see it, if it's going to harm the family, I won't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
But there are some, but I'm not knowledgeable enough and I don't use them.
Got it. Well, I'll just share with you, just, I think they're a very powerful tool, like a gun that can be life-saving or can be dangerously misused. And you have to know how to use it properly. And I think that people should be educated on it. It's expensive money. It's also non-recourse, meaning if they advance on it and they don't get the inheritance, they don't owe the money, which is a big advantage.
Wow.
There's no payments or interest accumulating. So if it gets litigated for 5 years, their interest isn't accumulating in most cases. So there's pluses and minuses to it, but I find that for some people, they get quick, money to hire the right attorney if they need a certain type of attorney, eviction services. There are things that I will advance money for, but I find that they have more ownership and control if they do it themselves. So if I have to be the one, I would, like you said, I've had cases where I've advanced $10,000 on a $25,000 commission. I get it all back and my commission.
Right.
But if they advance $10,000, I feel like they own the work, they own the process, and I don't have to advance the money, which is, in the long run, but probably better for me business-wise too. So it's not about the money on the probate advance, but I do feel like it's a tool that can work for some people. So just something for those who are listening.
Absolutely. And like you said, as long as for me, it's used in a positive way, which it sounds like what you're doing. I think as many resources as we can provide to people, I think helping and having them decide and have some ownership in what they're getting involved in, I think that's great.
I think the common case I use it for is bad brother has an attorney, has letters. The sister feels that she's going to get taken advantage of. There's a $500,000, $1 million at stake. And so she can advance $10,000, have an attorney and who's going to be filing probate, but will just kind of ride along and watch their interests for them. And while you might say, well, they could do it themselves, they sleep better at night with the attorney doing it for them. And the attorney I refer that to feels likes the business. So it works out, I think, in that sense for people.
Absolutely.
Okay. Look, you've been very generous with your time, and I don't want to go overload. So for people who want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you to refer you business or to get in contact with you?
So you could call me. My cell phone is always with me, 408-644-4295. Or you can email me, mscruz realtor@gmail.com.
And we'll put that in the description. And as well, she has a website if you want to see more information about her background and her important information about probate, buying a house. It's MsCruzRealtor.com is her website. And feel free to go there to get more information if you need to. Miriam, it's been exciting watching you grow from when you first started. You're so excited. And I think the thing I appreciate about you is you've taken a very professional approach to the business. I think that's what I got into this niche for, because I saw it being to where I sat really slimy and dishonest. And I think that being willing to compete based on knowledge and information is very inspiring. And I know you raised the bar, and I want to take that challenge and raise it again and just push each other to do better. Okay.
Thank you. And just before I go, that's actually the reason why I started. A person that I was helping, I saw what he did to someone who was going through probate and took advantage of her and me. So I actually decided to help people or prevent people from getting into that situation. So I think anyone that's in this space with us is probably on the same place that we are. We really want to help people. And I think we are making a difference. And we have a big job that we're doing. So I really appreciate you all listening in. Feel free to reach out. Bill, thank you for this opportunity. If there's any way that I can help you, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'm always here.
Fantastic, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Look for this for a long time. Thanks so much.
Likewise. Thank you.
And for the rest of you, thank you for joining in. This is Probate Weekly. We do it every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We live stream it on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. If you're watching on the recording, please like it, subscribe. But more important, if you have questions, put them in there, and I respond to almost all of them as quick as I can. And if it's from Miriam, I'll send it to her as well, and we'll get an answer for you. So again, thank you so much for participating. See you guys next week. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.